The Informal Hazard Assessment, sometimes also referred to as hazard reporting, is not just for heavy industries like construction. The Informal Hazard Assessment applies to every job in every sector, regardless of the duty or task being performed. Informal hazard assessments are just as important in the continuing care sector because of the ever-changing work environment. So let's have a look at what informal hazard assessments are and what they mean to you. Now, the easiest way to tell the two apart, the informal hazard assessment from the formal hazard assessment, is there's no documentation, essentially no form. Informal hazard assessments need to be an ongoing part of your workday instead of something that's scheduled and done at regular intervals. The process involves you always looking out for hazards while you're performing your work. The healthcare environment is not static. All workers have the responsibility to protect themselves, their co-workers, and everyone at the worksite. So the identification of new or uncontrolled hazards in the work environment is important, not only to you and your co-workers, but to everyone at the worksite. The informal hazard assessment process is used when hazards occur unexpectedly despite the established controls, and you need to consider additional controls so that you can continue working in a safe manner. Or you might encounter a new hazard, something that is not listed in your formal hazard assessment. Or you may need to exercise one of your three rights, mainly the right to refuse dangerous work. Every worker in Canada has three basic health and safety rights. They have the right to know about the hazards they may encounter while they're performing the work that they're doing. They have the right to meaningful participation in the health and safety activities in their workplace, and the right to refuse dangerous work. Now, hazard assessments are built upon these foundational rights where you as the worker are provided a clear understanding of the tasks that you're going to perform and the possible hazards you may encounter, but you're given the ability to understand the controls that you can use to safeguard yourself while you're doing that work. What this does is it enables you to understand that you may encounter new hazards or additional hazards, but you can use controls so that that work can continue safely. Or you have that right to refuse dangerous work because the environment is unsafe. How the informal hazard assessment process works is when you're entering a work environment, whether it's a new work environment or you're coming back to an already established work environment, you're going to look around, scan the area, looking for new hazards.
Good morning, Mr. Anderson.
Marjorie is not assigned to work with Mr. Anderson normally, but she's helping out a co-worker. Upon entering his room, Marjorie notices Mr. Anderson appears to have had an accident. Marjorie realizes she will have to clean up a bit and make things safe for her to better help the resident. Understanding the usual PPE that she uses, the vinyl gloves, may not be sufficient for her tasks. Marjorie decides to add different controls. She dons a face mask because she'll be very close to the resident, some protective eyewear because she might come in contact with body fluids, and finally Marjorie dons nitrile gloves. After ensuring she has all the controls necessary, Marjorie can continue with the task of caring for Mr. Anderson. Now, the next step in the informal hazard assessment is to report and communicate. Marjorie will need to report to her supervisor what's occurred, of course, but she'll also need to communicate to other co-workers that may be entering the environment and advise them of the necessary controls. Hazard assessments are very important to the continuing care sector, in particular, the informal hazard assessment. Now, part of this process, once again, is to be on the constant lookout for hazards and adjusting the controls that you have so that you can continue work safely. The other important piece is reporting and communicating. Reporting to your supervisors and communicating to your co-workers any other additional controls that they may need so they too can work safely. Now, we need to take care of ourselves by working safely and being on the constant lookout for hazards and using those proper controls. This way we can do what we do best, and that's caring for others. But the other important piece is, because we're working safely, we can enjoy life outside of work.